Welcome to Peloton's Move for Life podcast. In this podcast, we peel back the layers of our in-class programming and we talk about the science behind fitness. In each episode, you're going to get direct takeaways from wellness experts in the health and wellness space.
Being lonely can be the same risk to your life as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Connection with people in the form of touch actually can create like a change to your epigenetics.
Wow.
So it literally changes your cellular level.
So I think the Peloton community specifically combats loneliness.
I'm hearing about these new parts of Peloton and I'm still unpacking it, but it seems like there's a community for everybody.
We're going to learn more about living longer, healthier, and happier lives together. Hello, and welcome back to Peloton's Move for Life podcast. I'm Peloton Instructor Matt Wilpers, and our subject today, I think we can all relate to at certain points in our life, loneliness. But specifically, loneliness could be taking years off your life. Now, here to talk about this with us is my good friend, physician, NBC contributor, and health policy expert, Dr. Kavita Patel. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you. It's such an important topic we're diving into.
Yeah. So why is loneliness such an important topic right now?
Yeah. So let me just start with like a story with a patient. So I had been kind of thinking about kind of vital signs. A patient walks in a room, we get their blood pressure, we get their temperature, respiratory rate, their heart rate, and we call that kind of the core vital signs. And I've learned over years following this one woman that I'll just name her, not her real name, Brooke. And I'll tell you that over time, as I kind of aged with her, I saw her change and her health worsened. Nothing in her blood work, nothing that we could directly pinpoint, could diagnose it. And then we started folding in questions around screening for depression. She didn't screen positive, but I started asking her questions about how she felt when she was at home. Did she feel isolated? And it wasn't until talking with her did I realize we're missing an important vital sign on everybody and asking about their loneliness. And this, I think, is why this is tied to longevity, because I gave you a patient example. I could talk about that at times, you said, in your own life, my own life, that there were times where I could be in a room full of people, but feel isolated socially or isolated emotionally. And if someone had asked me the question, do you feel lonely? I would have said yes. And so I think this is something, we'll unpack some of the science behind it and actually talk about how to think about what to do and find that purpose and social connection.
That's awesome. How can loneliness actually take years off our life?
This is something that the Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, actually published about in a pretty much, I think, first of its kind landmark Surgeon General report on literally equating loneliness to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
Which I think, let's just stop and process that. So
that's a huge stat.
Being lonely can be the same risk to your life. So we would see anywhere from a 29 to 34% increase in mortality as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So if I said to you that we could do something about improving your mortality, your risk, your longevity, by just doing one thing, you would say, do that. Give me that prescription, doctor. What do I need to do? And I would say, it's working on our loneliness epidemic. And that's exactly how the Surgeon General described it. It's an epidemic.
Why do you think it's such a sneaky issue?
I think it's a sneaky issue because, number one, it's something that we have a taboo in our society to talk about. We actually know in studies that we also see differences. We'll talk about some gender differences, but we know that it's, first of all, we don't like to talk about being lonely. It seems like it's a vulnerability. Two, we haven't actually equated and put the science to it the way I just did, smoking 15 cigarettes a day or an increased risk of mortality. That connection had not been there because people had not been identifying it. And then third, I just want to say that I think there's a difference between, I want to make clear, we're not talking about depression. We're not talking about other conditions. When we talk about loneliness, there's actually kind of strict criteria around it. And it is a feeling of that kind of lack of connection or social isolation. And you can be lonely. Again, I felt lonely at times in a room of hundreds of people. And you can feel lonely when you're just by yourself. So the two can be true. But it's taken science a while to kind of catch up with what I think we know as humans.
Makes a lot of sense coming off the back end of COVID.
Yeah, it does.
And
yes.
Now we're in this Zoom culture. We're at home taking meetings.
Right.
I think one of my favorite parts about work, honestly, is walking into that locker room and seeing my colleagues and talking to them about what's going on. It makes me feel good.
It must have been hard for you. I know you were teaching in isolation, first in your, in a home apartment, and then coming into an empty studio. And I thought about that. It must have been so challenging.
Yeah, it feels like you're missing life.
And when you're with members, when you're doing, I know I had
life and energy, I should say.
I had the benefit of coming to a class and then that kind of photo line after, and it's literally palpable. In fact, we actually know, this is kind of something that you would not believe, but we know in genetic studies that actually physical contact with people, even the form of hugging and connection with people in the form of touch, actually can create like a change to your epigenetics.
Wow.
So it literally changes your cellular level. So think about the opposite. When we don't have that connection, when you don't have somebody to hug you, sometimes the most important thing I can do for a patient is just to kind of put my hands on them so that people feel that connection. And I see that kind of in the studio, even when you're doing that like photo line, or even sometimes those virtual high fives, I would get a big thrill because it felt like I was getting the high five in reality. And it's incredible that we can actually do that now.
Yeah, getting that high five at home feels so good.
It really does. And if it's from an instructor, you feel like you're like, Matt Wilpers just gave me a high five. And it's chemical. That's why I want this topic. We talk about a lot of things, and I think we think of it as kind of a fuzzy science. There's no fuzziness in this one. It is real. It is something that I think everybody struggles with at some point.
Yeah.
And it really can translate to taking years off your life.
Now, you mentioned gender differences as it relates to loneliness. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. When men actually report being lonely, if you follow them over years, you'll actually see increased mortality compared to women who report feeling lonely. But we don't think that that's necessarily something biological, but it's more that we see in men a reluctance to admit that they're lonely. Yeah. And when they do, it can often be more degrees severe than when women are likely to admit that they're lonely. I don't want to kind of reduce it to just that, but women are also more likely to be asked if they're lonely. There's sometimes gender differences that make it easier, or the setting more likely to be screened. And then I think there's also a lot more research that needs to be done on the biology. We've talked about how differences between men and women can manifest in exercise, nutrition, sleep. Same holds for social connections. And I think that we still have not necessarily gone beyond a surface there, but we do understand that those differences, even cortisol levels, which we do see differences, can translate to kind of how people feel either isolated or connected in some cases. However, having said that, I've often kind of described, in medicine, we see variations of everything. So there can be differences that explain something between a man and a woman, but how it manifests, how loneliness, going back to my patient, it manifested by every aspect of her body just breaking down. And that is not necessarily just between men or women. It's pretty much universal that loneliness, again, 15 cigarettes a day, Matt, that's a pretty substantial risk to somebody's health. And we see that across men and women.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is.
You know, I think back to times in my life where I've been lonely or felt pretty lonely. And I think the one thing that really got me through to push me out the door every day was really having like a sense of purpose in what I do. And that's a big part of how I ended up at Peloton. What does the role of purpose play?
I do think that the studies also now have looked at things like mindset, purpose, and we know that that can be an incredible prescription for health, even if you're lonely. And purpose gives a couple of things. So one, it gives people, like chemically, it actually gives your brain kind of a signal that it needs to kind of rev up, stay active, and send a signal to the rest of your body, believe it or not, at the cellular level that you need to turn on. We need to activate energy. We need energy for something. Often it can be confused with stress in the body, but when you have purpose, the brain's kind of hormones that are kind of signaling and firing on where we have pleasure actually fire and light up in functional MRIs. So we know that when people express having a purpose, even if it seems like something so audacious, I want to get to the moon. And you're like, you're not an astronaut. How can you get to the moon? If someone believes it in their core that they really want to one day go to the moon, we know over time that that actually changes how their brain sends chemicals and how their brain tells the rest of their body to kind of manifest that purpose. So it's cellular, it's biological. And then we also know that it's social and cognitive, that if you have purpose, you are going to be more likely than someone without purpose to seek connections, to kind of deepen those connections, and to also find a way to even have the people around you engage with you in a more meaningful way. So somebody who does not have purpose might have lots of family, lots of friends, but still walk away feeling lonely. And so it can be that factor, like what you identified as purpose in the form of coaching, training, running, which seems very isolating to run, but it can actually give you the very purpose, doing a race, finishing a marathon. That alone can be a game changer for your longevity.
So how do we avoid that by building connections? Like, how can we avoid this?
We should talk about kind of what you can do and what you can't do. And I always say this, we say this on every podcast. Everybody here should feel comfortable seeking professional help. If you feel like you're listening to this and it's kind of triggering something or getting you to think about something, talk to someone. So I just want to say that off the bat. I want to mention like 988. It's just a line that anybody can dial and can actually get a helping voice to kind of guide them through this. Some additional ways, though, that we should talk about finding that purpose are through things like exercise. We just talked about how you running a race might feel like it's isolating, but when you run with other people, whether it's virtual or in person, can be an incredible way to find purpose. So movement and exercise can be one way to do that. And that's a double benefit because we've talked about exercise and longevity. So having that with purpose and connection can also give you that second benefit.
That reminds me of a thing I often say in class is what's the difference between training and exercise?
Yes. Ed, go ahead.
Having a goal.
That's right.
Right. And
Right.
a goal often gives us purpose when we're exercising. It gives us, why are we doing? What are we doing? And one of the questions you ask as a coach is, well, how much does this matter to you?
Yeah. Right.
And that really helps drive your likelihood of achieving it.
So what if I say it doesn't matter as much? Does that mean we haven't found the right activity?
Maybe we haven't found the right goal.
Right. Or the right goal.
Right goal. And that can help drive purpose. And purpose is what's going to help you really achieve that goal.
I think that's a good reminder about finding purpose that you just kind of made me think of is finding your community or your tribe, because you're talking about it in like a coach kind of like relationship. I think that it's incredible that you can actually find this in people of all sizes, again, going back to the differences between men and women. In this, there's not much of a difference. If you find a community of people, no matter what they look like, and you feel like they help you accomplish your goal, they get you closer to that sense of purpose and connection, then that alone is an incredible benefit and can be, I think it's amazing when we have these like double benefits, getting great exercise, finding a social connection. A third can be discovering the very kind of tribe or community that can give you that same energy.
Yeah, that's super important. I often think about every time I travel to a new city, I always find the athletic minds in the city. And that's how I make friends.
Our connections that we're talking about are purposeful, like you just identified, quality over quantity. So it's the kind of connection you might have with an individual. And then second is doing something that's shared. You mentioned running, you go to another city. I imagine even here in New York City where we're sitting, you're part of a club of some kind that's not Peloton, but a running club or being outdoors. I get it through like a group that I like to go walking. And even if we're all listening to one of our walks on our AirPods, it's still like a collection of shared purpose. And then I think the third, which is a double win, is doing something involving movement. So if you can just move, our podcast is named Move for Life for that reason. It's not even about the type of movement, just any movement is actually going with people in conjunction with a community, virtual or real, has been shown to not only extend life, but to kind of add to all those positive factors that help us keep the habits that we know are going to extend our lives too.
My performance mindset's coming back. And
yes, it is. That's exactly. A lot of people often talk about kind of loneliness and then connection, purpose and mindset. And I think you and I have talked about like the mindset that you need in any situation. I like to tell myself often that your thoughts controls a lot of like your feelings and your actions.
Yeah.
But that's because your brain is so powerful that imagine shifting the way you think about something. So imagine being lonely. And then we'll talk about this when we get to our big five, but thinking about ways to avoid that feeling, that can start in your brain. It doesn't have to be complicated, but the hardest thing can be your own mindset to overcome.
Yeah, no, it reminds me I think it was last summer, I started training with a group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
It was last year. We started training together on the track Wednesdays.
Oh, yeah.
And we meet
outside.
every Wednesday at the track and we do tough workout that we all need to do a tough workout. We did it together because on your own, it would be much harder to do on your own than together.
It would.
And I would wake up being like, I can't wait to see these people, number one.
Yeah.
And have great conversations and mess around. But also like, we're going to do something tough together. And I need them there with me.
Right.
To really level me up in my performance.
Right.
And it brought my marathon PR from the 250s down into the low 240s.
Wow. So it actually translated.
That was the impact.
That much. Wow. Well, that's, this, it's your body literally like getting that feeling of like anticipation and getting excited. That's exactly the kind of changes to your brain chemistry. And then it translated clearly, in your case, it translated to a PR, but it goes back to like when you have that sense of community. And again, it's not about the numbers, it was the quality. Even if it was just showing up and maybe one other person, I have a feeling that same like PR, all those things translate. And it's also over time too. You don't look for it just one day at a time, but showing up. I think that can be the hardest part sometimes.
Which was interesting because everyone in our group PR'd that year.
It's not an accident. Since you know me, and I'm probably not going to meet you on a track Wednesday to be. But this is for. I'm up at 6. It's not. Although sometimes I am. I'm definitely exercising at 6. That you can do this no matter what age, what skill level. I know that you've had people of all ages and types, men, women, at different kind of stages of their athletic ability. It's just getting that community and moving and doing something. The thing that's amazing about Peloton that I found as a scientist, it is incredible to see what kind of community is developed virtually. That comment of the high five and that feeling of that kind of, wow, I got noticed. That happens when you see everybody engaging. And I'm very excited to see how this grows over time.
So my favorite thing is after class, getting to talk to some of our community.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
That translates, even if you're not part of the Peloton community today and you're just listening to this, you can find that. And again, it's your mindset, your thoughts. Now, I said it before, I'll say it again. This shouldn't simplify. There are sometimes people who are dealing with loneliness and they're also dealing with a diagnosis of some other type in addition to the loneliness. That makes it complicated. So I still want to stress, like, seek professional help. Don't be afraid. 988, try to find resources. But again, sometimes it starts with some of the things, but I hope we can unpack for some tips to
let's get into those tips. Let's get into our top 5. Our top 5 tips or tricks to help you build community.
All right.
What do you think?
All right. So we're going to try to actually keep it so you can remember this. So start small. Even just
I have a hard time with that.
I know you're not. You do though. You
my
are.
Wife's like, it's like no, we're nothing.
No. Here's a great example of something that starts small that you've said during your classes because I've taken them, and you've said just getting on the bike, just getting on the bike, or in some cases,
that's the biggest hurdle.
Getting out the door.
Getting on the bike is the
start
hardest
small.
part.
So that equivalent of connection is just start small. So I'll say it's a text to somebody. I want take out your phone and look at somebody that you haven't on your contacts list texted in a while. Just reach out. I think that's an incredibly small way, but that person that's on the other end, I am 100% going to guarantee you that you're going to change their day. And as a result, it's going to change your day. And it's just going to be something that you can do. So start small.
I'm the worst at that. But I absolutely love it when people do it to me.
But that's it, right? Unexpected.
I'm doing it today.
Not asking for anything, just saying like, thought of you and hope you're having a great day. That's it. Everybody do it. Number 2, be consistent. Just like we talk about with nutrition, movement, sleep, everything, try to be consistent. So if it's starting small and doing a text every day to somebody that's not on your phone, try to start your day that way. Or it might be making that mental note to kind of get together with friends on Track Wednesday. Or it might be actually going outside and when you're sitting in like a coffee shop that you try to like learn something about the person that you might have seen at the counter that's probably made your coffee 20 times. So, but be consistent. And I also kind of tag onto that and like be a little bit curious because often studies have shown that when someone takes an interest in you, that actually translates to you feeling better about yourself. It's often rare to find someone that says, Matt, tell me like what makes you happy. And I know you've done this in coaching because you ask people like, why are you doing this? Why does this matter to you? That same thing, be consistent and do something like that.
I love it. Consistency is key.
All right, next, be vulnerable.
Oh,
The hardest part when dealing with someone who says that they know they're lonely and or they're socially isolated. So again, we can be in a big crowd and be socially isolated, is being vulnerable to kind of expose ourselves to admitting we're lonely. But here's the amazing part. I can guarantee you right now, you and I have talked openly about being lonely at many parts of our life. Everybody else is that way too. And so part of that vulnerability is just giving voice to it and realizing that just being able to do that vulnerability of talking about it is actually helping you build connection in a very chemical and also social way.
I sometimes call it give to get.
Yeah,
right?
It's right. No, that's exactly right. It's true. And that's all right. So number 4 is reach out first.
There we go.
It's that same give to get mentality.
Huh.
I find that dealing with loneliness, you start to really kind of self-doubt and you start to kind of feel like, well, someone doesn't call me or I don't get invited. They don't want me. They're not thinking about me or nobody's thinking about me. That's actually not the case. 99.9% of the time, it's that people are so busy and it's not even thinking about a person. But if you reach out first, they're like, I'm so glad, Matt, that you reached out. Yes, I would love to see you or talk to you. Let's get on the phone. Let's do the old fashioned. I know somebody's like, who talks on the phone? But that might actually be the first act of reaching out first. So that's tip number 4. And then last but not least is try to reach deep, not wide. Actually having deeper, meaningful connections, even if it's with a smaller number of people, and it could be one person that can often make the difference and literally make the difference in longevity, health span, lifespan. So reach deep, not wide. And that will end up being probably the best predictor in a study that Harvard did called the Harvard Happiness Study, looking at decades and decades of people and what made them happy. It was often the relationships that they had and the meaningful contact that they had was sometimes 5 of their closest friends. You've probably heard this, that people kind of define, like you benefit from kind of 5 people around you basically in your life. And they found that the people who are the happiest talk about feeling like tightly connected to sometimes there's those 5 people. So reach deep, not wide, and it can literally make the difference in your longevity.
So how do you think the Peloton community combats loneliness?
I really love the groups, some of the, just getting back to like, we're doing the same thing. We share goals, consistency. I'll sometimes do this with the Peloton Female Physicians group, and we'll agree to meet, do different classes. And I think there's also now with teams, the ability to kind of organize as teams. Is that right?
That's right. So Peloton's created sort of topic-specific groups where you can join if you want, and the conversation is focused on specific topics. So we have one for our Move for Life podcast. You can join where we keep the conversation focused on all the things we've talked about here, which is a lot of fun.
So you can identify kind of specific areas and there's no limit. So
you can start your own team.
You could start your own team and join others, and there's no limit to how many you can join as well.
That's right.
It's just another way to go beyond the leaderboard, which I think is kind of a natural place we started at, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And it's, again, and the goal is to really build community, build these connections.
Right.
Find your tribe.
Consistency, shared experiences, and again, quality, not quantity. So you can have a team of 2. It can be a very important team if it's a certain topic. And maybe you and I should have a co-hosting a Peloton podcast team, a team.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of quality, I know some people that have met their spouse.
Is that right?
Not just one, like many.
I haven't quite done that. I have my spouse that I've had, but I have definitely made friends virtually, completely without ever having seen them. And then when we've met in real life, it's that rush. Everybody can you remember that rush you feel when you've seen somebody that you've anticipated wanting to see for so long?
Yeah.
And it all came from like the Peloton community. It's incredible.
One of the favorite things I love to see, especially in class, I'll ask people in the beginning of class, where are you coming in from?
Right.
And people will say, like, I'm here to meet so-and-so who I've been training with for years.
Right.
I've never actually met them in person.
Yeah.
And they're sitting right next to each other. They came to take a class together in person. And they're like, this is so cool. We get to actually do this in person
They
now.
do.
And
It is.
I love that because me personally, like I love having an accountability buddy for workouts.
And you can do that. I know sometimes it's hard. Everyone can't get to New York or London or a physical kind of Peloton location. The studies show that you can have that exact same quality of connection virtually. So even though we're in a Zoom era, you can still have a meaningful connection. Again, our theme here is how much longevity can be impacted by everything, loneliness, all the way to like the positivity of community.
Well, it's always a pleasure to nerd out with you on all these things.
See you on the leaderboard.
And it's been a lot of fun covering this important subject of longevity. Everyone, keep the conversation going on Peloton Teams. And of course, make sure you check out all of our episodes on the Peloton YouTube channel. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks, Matt.
And remember, you're not just training to move for today, you are training to move for life. And I'll see you next time.